G'day, battlers, and today we are jumping back in for another Go Battle League meta, this time the Mountain Cup Great League Edition that is coming from March 23rd through to March 30th, so pretty soon. But it's a pretty simple cup to understand. It's Great League with Pokemon with typings of Ice, Ground, Rock, and Steel, with the only ban being Swampert because it would be a little bit too overpowered. But it sort of just made room for another Pokemon that is quite overpowered in this cup, but, you know, not Swampert overpowered. So with that said, we're just going to jump straight into it. But if you haven't already, do go ahead and subscribe because there's a lot more metas to simplify over the next couple months. So let's jump into it. And here, for the thumbnail, now we have three main groups over here, and we have one very large fellow down here. And Diggersby is number 1 on the PvP rankings, and for really good reason. And I'm going to wait to talk about Diggersby until we've talked about those three groups, because I think it'll help contextualize how good Diggersby is in this cup. Now, we'll start off, if we look at the top, we have sort of it was originally a fighting group, and it kind of is. It's Pokemon with a steel typing that have fighting moves. So we have Lucario with counter, Escavalier with counter, and Registeel with access to the relatively quick Focus Blast with that lock on. In the bottom right, we have the sort of ground types, the counters to steels. So we have Gliscor, Runerigus, Whiscash, and Marshtomp. In the bottom left, we have grass types and ice types. So Credilli's there, Ferrothorn, Abomasnow, Torterra as the grass types, and then ice types, also Abomasnow, but then also Walrein and Lapras. And these Pokemon kind of act as counters to the ground types, the grass types very much to the water types and the ground types. Gliscor does do a little bit better in some of those matchups against the grasses, but really super duper weak to the ice types. It just gets absolutely destroyed because it is that double super effectiveness to the ground typing and the flying typing. Now, this is actually I've kind of already explained that basic meta, right? The access to counter to fighting moves obviously does super effective damage to the ice types, but almost all of the grass types, because grass type isn't explicitly eligible, they're being brought into this cup because of their other typings, and most of those other typings are weak to fighting. So we have Credilli with the rock type, we have Ferrothorn with the steel type, we have Abomasnow there with the ice type as well. Torterra isn't weak to the fighting, but the steel typing really helps to just sort of absorb all of that grass damage, and is just able to, they're kind of just able to over damage. Torterra being a sort of razor leafer in this cup. So it's sort of the toxic, no brain, just tap sort of Pokemon in the cup, I guess, which to be honest, there aren't a lot of. Most of them are sort of, you have to go for the charge moves as opposed to just fast moving and going for Sand Tombs or something. But, and the big thing in the bottom right, and also it's worth noting that a lot of these are a little bit dependent on how stuff goes. For example, if Lucario just lands a Shadow Ball onto Runerigus, then it does a lot better for Lucario than it would otherwise. But this is sort of it's sort of just an overview, a basic understanding of what the meta looks like. And I think we'll just go straight into talking about the sort of big chungus in the room, Diggersby coming in. So Diggersby, what counters Diggersby? If you think about fighting damage counters Diggersby, and so we've got Registeel, Escavalier, and Lucario. But Diggersby has Fire Punch and Earthquake. Both of those moves are super effective to Steel. Fire Punch in particular doing double super effective damage to Escavalier with its bug typing, and it gets to Earthquake pretty quick with those mud shots. And it sort of works out that Diggersby can win against all three Pokemon. It can be a little bit dependent on what moves are thrown. For example, up against Lucario, I think that obviously if Diggersby lands an Earthquake, then Lucario is gone. But I think depending on IVs, you can actually sort of fandangle it to just sort of get through there. But against Escavalier, you definitely need, you don't need Earthquake. You just go straight Fire Punch and you do okay there. And then Registeel, Diggersby's such a tank, by the way, that can take so many moves as well. But in the end, you can counter it with those guys, but it's really close, way closer than it should be. So something else that is super effective, ice and grass. So grasses, again, we have Fire Punch. Fire Punch going to do big damage, especially to Ferrothorn. Abomasnow does not like that either. Earthquake doing some big damage as well. But there are some Credilli does a little bit better up against Diggersby just because it's a little bit more tanky and it has the rock type as well. But again, it's all really move dependent. The ice types actually do okay, and I think they're sort of potentially the main counter. But the other thing that is weak, that Diggersby is weak to, is water. And we've got things like Marshtomp with Surf, Whiscash doesn't actually have any water moves, but it is a water type, so it doesn't care about fire punch as much. But Diggsby like actually still does a really big amount of damage to these Pokemon as well. So it's sort of a little bit. If Diggsby has an energy advantage, you're in trouble. That's basically the bottom line. Do not let Diggsby get an advantage on you, and like especially more than that, don't let Diggsby get a shield advantage on you, because if Diggsby has shield advantage, you are in some serious trouble. So that's sort of why Diggsby is sort of the big Pokemon on the campus sort of thing. There are going to be, like, I don't think it's a Pokemon that you have to have on every single team. I think there's teams that are going to work a little bit better without Diggsby, because Diggsby is that Pokemon that is so oppressive. There's going to be a lot of people trying to counter it as best they can, and there's going to be strategies to defeat it. And if you sort of rely on Diggsby, then you might potentially get caught out. But with that said, that's kind of all I have to say about the Mountain Cup. Some sort of relatively basic stuff going on, and Diggsby exists as well. So with that said, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one. I think the next video is going to be on the Sylph Arena Polka Dot Cup. I've already got a Meta Simplified video, so check the channel for that. But we'll be doing some battles and taking a look at some teams and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you to my patrons and supporters on YouTube as well, because they are some very lovely people. And I will see you in the next one.